What if I told you that all of those credit card rewards that you've been earning are costing you more than you think? The truth is, credit card rewards aren't as innocent as they seem, and there's a dark secret to how these credit card companies are actually profiting from you. Now, whilst this video is about the dark side of credit cards and the rewards associated to them, I'm actually a huge fan of credit cards and I cover them extensively on this channel. Between my partner and I, we own 5 different credit cards, and to date, we have never paid a single cent of interest. So you might be thinking that if you played your cards right, never buy what you can't afford, and pay off your balance every single month such that you don't pay a single cent of interest, then you might be winning in the game of credit card rewards and not be one of those suckers that the credit card companies are profiting off. Well, that's where you're unfortunately wrong. Despite doing all of that, you and I are still both suckers. We're just paying for it in a more disguised manner. By the end of this video, you'll learn the surprising strategies that credit card companies are using to make money from you. So stick around to discover the hidden truth and learn how you can beat these credit card companies at their own game. Now, to understand how the credit card industry became so lucrative, we first have to understand how it was built and how it's currently operating. The first hint of the modern credit card came in the early 1900s with the Diners Club, which was the first real payment company in the world. Diners Club allowed you to eat at restaurants and then pay the bill later. Though it wasn't technically a true credit card, it was what is known as a charge card, where you essentially place your purchases on the card, but at the end of the month, you needed to pay back the balance in full. Despite the limited scope, it was the first iteration of the modern credit card that really took off. But the real game changer launched in 1958 when Bank of America launched the Bank of Americard. This was the first credit card to offer what is known as a revolving line of credit. This essentially allowed people to carry forward their balances, make minimum payments, and then begin accruing interest. It gave consumers a deceptive sense of financial freedom, making them feel like they had more spending power than ever before. Visa and later MasterCard quickly became global giants, and today are two of the most widely accepted payment platforms globally, with American Express following closely behind them. In a recent Senate hearing in the US, the CEOs from both Visa and MasterCard were both questioned and revealed the eye-watering profit margins that both of these companies make.
I mean, what's your profit margin, Mr. Patrick?
It's circa 50%.
Mr. Sheedy?
Slightly higher.
It's higher than 50% profit margin?
Slightly higher than MasterCard, yes.
Yeah.
To put that profit margin into perspective, Apple, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, has a profit margin of 25%. Commonwealth Bank, one of the biggest banks in Australia, has a profit margin of 30%. And Rio Tinto, one of the largest mining companies in Australia, only has a profit margin of 22%. In fact, the cumulative returns of Visa over the past 10 years has actually out-returned the S&P 500 index by over 200%. So how does a company that doesn't even sell a physical product to its consumers have a profit margin that nearly doubles some of Australia's most profitable companies? To understand that, we firstly need to understand how credit card companies actually make money. Let's start with the most obvious one, being the everyday consumer like you and I. With credit card users, there are generally 3 types of users. The first type, let's call them the responsible user, uses the credit card for their everyday purchases, always pays their bills on time, and doesn't incur any interest. At best, you'd imagine that these customers are cost neutral. The second type of user is the credit card churner. Their sole purpose is to maximize the value they receive from credit cards for rewards, whilst paying as little as possible out of pocket. These users are likely loss generating for credit card companies. And then finally, the third type of user are the interest payers. These are the users who make minimum payments on their credit cards and rack up hundreds, if not thousands of dollars worth of interest that they then need to pay back to the credit card companies. Now, putting the everyday user aside, you might be thinking that the interest payers are actually subsidizing the cost of using a credit card to the credit card churners. that these credit card companies would be willing to lose money on the credit card churners only to then make it back and more with the interest payers. Now, whilst you're not wrong, a surprising fact that you might not know is that credit card companies like Visa and MasterCard actually don't make any money from late interest payments because they're not the ones that are issuing the credit cards, nor are they the ones that are setting the interest rates. When you sign up for a new credit card, these are typically issued by the big banks in Australia or other credit providers, and they are the ones who are actually making money from the interest payers. But what might shock you even more is that credit card companies actually profit from all three types of users, and let me show you how. When you, as a consumer, taps your card to pay your weekly groceries at Woolworths, your money just doesn't go straight to Woolies. It goes through not one, not two, but three different intermediaries before it actually reaches Woolworths. There's the credit issuer that provided you with your credit card, and this would be, one of the big four banks from Australia. Then there's Woolworths' own credit provider that actually receives the money that you're paying them, and then the payment network from Visa, MasterCard, or American Express that actually facilitates this transaction. And for the privilege of handling your transaction, all three of these players takes a nice hefty cut of your transaction. Visa, MasterCard, and American Express charge what is called an interchange fee. MasterCard and Visa, on average, has an interchange fee of between 1 to 1.5% on most transactions, whilst American Express is known to charge a much higher interchange fee of around 2.4%. Now, whilst the interchange fee will vary based on the network, the merchant, and the card issuer, there's typically also a fixed fee cost associated as well. This is why most small businesses in Australia will have a minimum transaction of between $10 to $20 when you're paying by credit card. As at small amounts, the fixed transaction fee will eat up the majority of their profits. Like imagine paying something for $1 and then having 10% of your profit margin being taken away as a fee. Now, I'm sure you would know that most small to medium-sized businesses in Australia will also charge you a surcharge fee if you're paying by credit card.
How much is the credit card surcharge?
We charge 1.2% any card.
These businesses are essentially passing on the costs of using the interchange fee of using these payment networks to you as the consumer. Now, on average, with reward credit cards, you can expect to get around 2% cash back in rewards whenever you swipe your card, but you're also being charged an additional 1.5% fee just to use the credit card in the first place. So the benefits and rewards that you think you're getting each time you tap your credit card are actually smaller than you might think. We as Australians over the years have become accustomed to paying these surcharge fees over and over again over the course of a year, and it really does add up. And it's estimated that Australians pay a total of $1 billion in surcharge fees per year. Now, whilst I also hate paying surcharge fees, let's not all hate on small businesses for passing these costs on. Instead, let's take a look back at both Visa and MasterCard because ultimately it's them who have a large part in determining this interchange fee. Now, you'll notice that large merchants like Coles and Woolworths don't actually charge you a surcharge if you decide to pay with a credit card. This is because they absorb those costs in the interest of their customers, but also because they have the scale and size and negotiating power to actually negotiate for a lower interchange fee. While small businesses, on the other hand, have no choice but to accept what's given to them. In fact, Visa and MasterCard's business model was described as monopolistic in behavior at the US Senate hearing. In the last fiscal year of 2024, Visa made $35.9 billion of net revenue, of which $17.7 billion, or nearly half of this, was from data processing fees. And they were able to generate those exorbitant revenue numbers by taking a tiny fraction of every transaction globally. These enormous profits are the reason why Visa, American Express, and MasterCard spend millions on advertising every single year. In 2023, Visa spent $1.3 billion on marketing effort alone, and it was their second largest expense behind their employee wages. They've had ads in the Super Bowl and the Olympics, and whilst it may seem a bit odd since when you get a credit card, you don't get it via Visa, you get it via a credit provider. But the amount of money spent on marketing by Visa and MasterCard actually pales in comparison. But what you might find even more alarming is that the amount that they spend on advertising pales in comparison to the amount of customer incentives that Visa and MasterCard give out each year. Visa spent $13.8 billion on client incentives in 2023. This is the money that they pay to the big banks in Australia, like Commonwealth Bank and ANB, and other credit providers to help fund customer promotions. The issuing banks themselves, in turn, are incentivized to do even more marketing promotions, and these days have leveraged the likes of social media and popular blog posts to promote their products. Because it's so competitive and there's so much money to be made, these banks will also offer lucrative sign-up bonuses to entice new customers to sign up to their credit cards. These rewards can include a whole stash of frequent flyer points, free access to lounges, free travel credit, travel insurance, the list goes on. American Express are probably the best known within the credit card reward space for offering lucrative rewards to their customers, with travel credit, dining credit, and unlimited lounge access being the norm for some of their most premium credit cards. And this is because American Express's strategy is a little bit different to Visa and MasterCard. They aren't in the business of trying to sign up as many customers as possible. Instead, they want to target a very specific demographic: the rich and wealthy. Naturally, wealthier cardholders are going to be spending more money, which means more interchange revenue for American Express. As previously mentioned, Amex charges a significantly higher interchange fee compared to Visa and MasterCard. It's because of these high interchange fees that allows American Express to offer more lucrative rewards to its customers. And it's because of these rewards that will drive American Express's customers to spend more on their card, leading to more interchange revenue and completing the circle. This circle of revenue, rewards, and more spending results in the creation of a card like the American Express Platinum Card, a card that costs more than the average weekly wage in Australia. So how do we make sure that we aren't left being a sucker in this vicious cycle of interchange fees, rewards, and spending? Well, my personal view with credit cards is that just because you have one, it isn't a free pass to start buying up whatever you want. Instead, we should be sticking to the same spending habits before we actually got our credit card. So really, we're only spending what we typically do on the credit card, and we aren't spending more. So removing the spending aspect of this equation aside, this leaves us with two variables: rewards and interchange fee. Now, as we all know, most small businesses will be passing on the interchange fee to us as end consumers, which will typically be fixed based on the payment network that you choose to pay with. But did you know that credit card companies will actually charge their merchants different fees based on different cards? Cards that give higher rewards, like the American Express Platinum, will have a higher associated fee charged to the merchant, whereas others with lower or no rewards will have a lower fee associated to it. Now, the shop owner isn't able to pass on different surcharges based on the different cards that you pay with. It has to be fixed for that particular payment network. In practice, what this means is that cardholders who hold more premium reward credit cards are able to extract more out of their credit card than the fees that they're paying, whilst others who aren't using reward credit cards are actually subsidizing those benefits and paying more out of pocket. So in order to win the game of credit cards, there's two things that we need to be doing. Firstly, we need to ensure that we're using a credit card that earns us sufficient rewards to offset the fees that we're paying. The higher the rewards that you earn from your credit card, the better. But this also comes with higher associated costs like the annual fee. The second thing that we need to be doing is ensuring that we're maximizing our rewards that we're getting out of our credit card. For example, you can redeem your reward points for gift cards to Woolies and Coles, but this only gets you around 0.5 cents per point in value. If you redeem an economy reward flight to travel internationally, you would typically get around 1.5 cents per point in value. And then with a business class reward flight, you can get upwards of 4 to 5 cents per point in value. But what about the average consumer? Not everyone can afford to pay an additional $400 to $500 in annual fees, let alone nearly $2,000 for the American Express Platinum card. Well, it then actually turns to regulation, and the Reserve Bank is actually trying to cut fees charged by credit card companies. Well, unfortunately, it then turns to regulation. Now, the Reserve Bank is actually trying to cut fees charged by credit providers by encouraging providers to route transactions through the cheapest network, known as least cost routing. But less than two-thirds of businesses have actually signed up. And while some progress has been made to enable least cost routing, progress has been pretty slow.
Some progress has been made to enable LCR for businesses. It's been slow.
Labor government has proposed to ban payment surcharges related to debit cards. Broad crackdown on consumer fees by the Albanese government. And whilst this is a step in the right direction, I'm not sure if there will ever be a ban on credit card surcharges in Australia. If anything, we can look to what other countries have done to combat this problem. As of July of 2024, the EU introduced a cap of all credit card transaction fees across all of Europe of just 0.3%. At the end of the day, we live in a consumer society where people buy many goods and services, and where the acquisition of materialistic things is a reflection of your societal status. People's sense of identity and social status is often tied to what they own and what they wear. With the amount of money that payment networks, banks, and businesses make off of each transaction, the equilibrium prices of all products have been pushed up, making everything more expensive for everyone. Whether you use a credit card or not, as long as people have more money to spend, companies will continue to find ways to make it as easy as possible for people to spend their money. So that wraps up this video. Let me know what you think. Do you think they bear the responsibility of rising consumer spending, or perhaps they're also responsible for inflation? Let me know what you think down in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.